We are live on Tuesday, March the 26th. WagerTalk Today, Monday through Friday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. But it's more importantly archived 24/7 for your viewing pleasure here on WagerTalk TV. So make sure you hit subscribe and hit the bell as well so you know when shows and videos go up each and every day. I am Steve Merrill, filling in for the Prez this week. He is on assignment. And Teddy Covers is gone today, so Andy Lang will be my co-host. And always great to do shows with Andy Lang. Andy and I started together 3+ years ago with the NASCAR show. And now look where we are, Andy. WagerTalk Today, prime time. We're going to have a great show today. We got a little college basketball talk still, Andy, down the road here because we're Sweet 16's a couple days away. But we got a lot of NBA today to talk about because that's really the focus sport for Tuesday. And also going to look at a little UFC with you along the way. But let's bring on our first guest because he is the $2 capper at WagerTalk.com because it is $2 Tuesday. And Ronald Cabang is an NBA expert. And Ronald, I know you've got a strong 5% NBA best bet going for $2, so let us know about that.
Sorry, I missed that. My audio just cut out. What were we saying?
I was saying Andy doesn't like you, but I stood up for you, and you're awesome, so you're the $2 capper.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to be the $2 Tuesday capper today. Was on a little bit of a hot streak the last couple weeks. I think I might be number one in the NBA the last couple weeks, but yeah, I was on like this massive 22-6 run or something like that. And then the weekend wasn't kind, but bounced back yesterday. So I'm glad to get back on track.
Let's look at a little NBA tonight, Ronald. I know you don't want to give away the 5% play, but what's something you want to talk about here on the show?
Yeah, going to the Warriors in the Heat game. I actually like this game going to the under. Obviously, the Warriors here playing on the second game of a 5-game road trip, first leg of back-to-back games. They do have the Magic on deck as well. They did lose to the Heat by double digits back in December. Warriors didn't have Draymond. The Heat didn't have Butler either. And I think I just saw a notification, too, that Butler was possibly downgraded today. So got to make sure you check on his status as well. Warriors are coming off of a small, I think a few points loss to the Wolves there. They ended up failing to cover by a single bucket. On the Heat side, they're playing their third game of a 4-game homestand, so they've been at home for a little bit. But coming off a huge 37-point win over the Cavs, to me, I think we're going to see a little bit of a letdown offensively after that game here. Some trends from a total perspective here. The Heat 20-6 to the under against non-conference opponents. In those games, they're averaging a combined 215.2. Last night when I took this play, it was at 218.5. Another trend that points to the under here for the Heat, they're 27-11 to the under following a win. Just in general, just following a win, including 15 of their last 17 games following a win have gone under. So a long under streak there for them. Some trends on the Warrior side. They're actually 11-4 to the under as road favorites this season. Also 4-0 to the under as road favorites on the first leg of back-to-back games. So from a trend perspective, a lot of things pointing to the under. But when you bring in some of the stats, a lot of the stats also point to the under here. Looking at the last 10 games, if you look at recent form, the Heat, they play a ridiculously slow pace. I think bottom 3 in pace the last 10 games. Obviously on the season, one of the slowest in the league. Neither team has been getting to the free throw line a ton either. That's one thing I like to look at with totals because when you get to the free throw a lot, they tend to stop the clock. Teams get to have more possessions. If they're not getting to the free throw line, the clock tends to run a little bit more. Another thing that I like to look at is turnovers. If they're not turning the ball over a ton and we're looking at a slow-paced team, they're taking these long possessions, not giving up fast breaks or points off turnovers. Those are good things for the under as well. One thing that the Warriors have been struggling at defensively is defending the 3 ball. But from a volume perspective, the Heat don't shoot a lot of threes, especially in the last 10 or so games. What I look at, they're in the bottom half of the league as far as volume from 3. So a lot of things to me pointed to the under, and I took it at the 218.5.
Love it, Ronald. Are you concerned at all about the Golden State Warriors and their kind of lack of defense? It seems like when they lose, they're giving up points. 114 to Minnesota, 123 to Indiana. Even when they beat Memphis, the final score was 137-116. So Memphis was able to put up 116. You got Butler, who it looks like he's going to play. Wasn't in shoot-arounds, but maybe tired legs on Miami. Is that good or bad for defense? And then the Golden State Warriors, how do they slow down this Heat team? Or is it just the pace of the Miami Heat that slows themselves down?
Yeah, to me, I think it's the Heat. Also, they tend to struggle at home offensively as well. I think it's something that we've seen throughout the season. I mean, if you look at some of the things from previous years with the Warriors, they tend to play well at home, right, and then struggle on the road. For some reason, this year has been a little bit of the opposite, and really has to. I mean, to me, it seems like it's their defense, but like pace of play really is the key focus there, and like some of the statistical interactions, not only just pace of play, but like I mentioned, those little key details that you don't think about when you cap these games that affect the total. Clock running, no free points at the free throw line. Those are things that really help out these totals. So for me, like obviously. It is a concern, right? Potential, fatigue spot or whatever it might be, but for the most part, just a lot of the trends pointing toward that under, and a lot of those key details pointing to the under as well was enough for me to actually take it.
It's Ronald Cabang, NBA expert, and he is the $2 capper this Tuesday at WagerTalk.com. He's got a rare 5% NBA spread best bet tonight. There's only 4 games on the board. We just gave you an early game at 7:30 Eastern. Of course, there are 2 other national TV games tonight. Ronald's got the big play on a 5% play on one of the other 3 games. But we're going to look at the late game now, the TNT game, and that is Dallas-Sacramento. For most of the season, Ronald, I thought the Mavericks kind of underachieved, really weren't playing up to the potential. Doncic in or out of the lineup, but they have turned it on recently. They're now 8-1 at straight up, 8-1 against the spread their last 9 games. Really the hottest team in the NBA, making that push towards the postseason. Sacramento Kings, I used them as my free play last night at wagertalk.com on my page. I thought it was a flat spot for the 76ers after beating Harden the night before with no rest, and the Kings held on to win by 12 last night. What are you doing with this game? Dallas at Sacramento tonight, and this is once again the late night national TV game at 10 Eastern on TNT.
Yeah, first, one of the things that you pointed out, with the Mavs kind of underachieving early and then kind of this late push here, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I think it really has to do with some of the guys that they picked up after the All-Star break, like Gafford and PJ Washington. These guys are lengthy, athletic guys that they didn't have before, right? Like they had Kleber and whoever their previous center was. But like I said, like these guys are much more athletic, more defensive minded. They also bring a ton to the offensive side of the ball. These are guys that can get the lobs, right? And then PJ can kind of play out there and shoot the 3 ball too. So they affect both sides of the ball a lot better than the power forwards and the centers that they had previously. But if you look at these 2 teams from a record perspective, they're identical. They're also only a half game behind the Suns for the 6th spot. So these are super important games coming up for these 2 teams because they play again on Friday. One thing that I initially looked at, because both teams were on the back-to-back, I was like, well, who's going to sit, right? This is the year of people sitting on back-to-backs. But Luka played 41 minutes, but just the situation in general it tells me he's probably not going to sit, even after playing so many minutes yesterday. But like you said, Mav's been really on fire lately. They've covered 1-8 of their last 9 games. Defensively, they've kept 7 of their last 9 opponents under their team total. I mean, the Mavs, they lost both matchups so far against the Kings this season, so they're going to want to get some sort of get back here, a revenge situation angle, I guess you want to call it. On the Kings side, this is a really tough fatigue spot. 3rd game in 4 nights, 4th game in 6 as well. Obviously, they're coming off of that game yesterday as well. This is the 2nd game off an East Coast road trip. They came all the way from Orlando. And this is one of the things that I took from one of a couple of the post-game pressers. I heard this from multiple coaches. It's the 2nd game off cross-country flight is when teams usually feel that jet lag. And that's a situation the Kings are in tonight. I know the Kings have been strong defensively in recent weeks as well. Not only the Mavs kind of picking up on the defensive side as well, but the Kings have too. Under in 8 of their last 9 games. The only game that went under, the only game that went over went into OT. They actually stayed under in regulation. Opponents would have stayed under in 9 straight games if it wasn't for that OT game. So both teams playing well defensively. But I think one of the key factors here, from a spread perspective, I talked about back-to-back situations. Mavs, they've done well in back-to-back situations, 8-3 ATS in that spot, including 6-0 ATS if the game is on the road. Obviously, they're on the road here in Sacramento. The Kings are kind of the opposite, back-to-backs, 4-8 against the spread, 0-4 against the spread if they're the home favorite in the situation. So you're looking at trends pointing in opposite directions. That's one thing I like to see, especially when you're actually going to bet the game. Kings do have the rebounding advantage here, but I can see one thing happening for the Mavs, taking advantage of getting to the free throw line. In the last 10 games in general, they're fourth in the league in highest free throw rate. The Kings send opponents to the line at the second highest rate. These are free points that they're getting. They're getting at the line here against a tired team. Obviously, tired legs can affect defense. Probably going to have bad form defensively, not being able to move with these guys who like to get to the paint. In current form, fatigue situation, a lot of these things align and point me to the Mavs here.
Ronald, this line almost seems, I don't want to say too easy, but when I look at it, why is Dallas like the underdog here? It's not a big underdog spot or anything, but it's just one of those lines where it's like, did they know something that we don't? Why wouldn't this be Dallas like -3 with the rest and how hot Dallas has been and revenge angle? It just, I don't know. Maybe I'm overthinking a little bit too much, but I looked at this game and this line, I thought, why in the world would Dallas be an underdog? Does that worry you at all?
I mean, like a little bit. It was a little bit worrisome, but when you dive deep into it and you find all the situations, the angles, and the numbers to kind of back it up. If you look at it, I mean, they've Sacramento has won. They beat Philly by 12, right? They beat Orlando by 2. Orlando's been one of the hotter teams in the league as well. And then obviously they took an L against Washington. That was sort of a letdown there. After because they faced Toronto in Toronto the night before. So second of back-to-back international travel, they ended up winning that game by 30 something points. Definitely a letdown spot against Washington. That's obviously that ended up happening. But if you look at some of these wins in the last few games, they've been solid, showings by the Sacramento team. And you look at Dallas coming off a 10-point win. They beat Utah. Utah was sort of undermanned there. The Spurs not really that great. So I mean, I guess if you go win for win, Sacramento's wins look a little bit nicer. Maybe that's just, maybe that's the reason why they can put the line where it is. But for the most part, from a matchup perspective and recent form, and I take a lot into recent form too, because I mean that's momentum, right? Momentum, travel situation, all that stuff. You gotta make all those things align, and most of the things pointed towards Dallas. And to me, whether the line is tricky or not, you got to go with what your reasoning and your research tells you.
Yeah, and it's funny. Both teams are exactly 42 and 29 straight up. So on the surface, they should be a couple point favorite based on the overall numbers for the season. But as we just talked about, the Mavericks are in much better current form, and that's kind of what Andy was saying as well, based on the last couple of weeks. One thing I'll point out too: Mavericks 22 and 12 ATS on the road. Sacramento just 14 and 20 ATS at home. So that's been a big home road split. And also, if you look at Dallas's recent road wins, as you kind of said, Ronald, San Antonio, Detroit, Chicago, Toronto. On the other side of that, over the past month, they've lost at OKC. That's their only loss in the last 9 games. Lost to Boston, lost at Cleveland, lost at Indiana. So they also haven't exactly stepped up on the road. So I think that's maybe another concern there. But once again, Dallas 8-1 straight up in ATS your last 9. So definitely a live dog tonight, as Ronald Cabang said, to say the least. All right, Ronald, 22 and 8, over 70% on all 5% NBA best bets over the last 2+ years. You don't have them often, but you've got one going tonight, a rare 5% NBA spread, and it's just $2 because you're the $2 capper at WagerTalk.com. Tell us a little bit more about it once again.
Yeah, like you said, rarely have these 5% plays. Obviously, $2 Tuesdays. A good place to have one, and everything really lined up. The trends, the angles, the stats all lined up on a perfect day. Like you said, it's actually the last 2 years. So since January 1st, 2022, only 30 of these 5% spread plays, 73.3% hit rate, 22 and 8, 43.7% ROI, up 65.6 units. All of those marks between then and now are number one at WagerTalk for these 5% spread plays. So it's definitely one of those rare situations where, you got to take advantage of it, especially when it's just $2 on the season. I'm up nearly 40 units on NBA spread wagers alone. Like I said, everything really lined up, and I'm glad $2 Tuesday, the $2 Tuesday lined up with a strong 5% play.
Not a bad time to check out NBA expert Ronald Cabang and get his $2 5% best bet for $2 Tuesday. Ronald Cabang, WagerTalk.com. And Ronald is an NBA expert. In fact, you can check everybody's last 20 plays if you look at his page, Andy, his last 20 plays, all NBA. No college basketball tournament. So I don't know. Why are we listening to a guy that doesn't bet the college basketball tournament? How dare him? Andy, how's your college basketball tournament been going?
I did not lose one college basketball play. I didn't win any either because I'm in the same boat. I don't do college basketball. That's gonna be what did bettors learn. I didn't know that graphic was ready. Yeah, so this is titled, apparently, I'm a degenerate for not betting the college basketball tournament. And the reason I say that is I've been told that not once, not twice, but 3 times. So I want to give you some numbers here, Steve. Golf plays this year, 11-5 for plus 16 units. Darts plays, 7-2 for plus 6 units. Lacrosse, 15-5 for plus 32 units. We've never had a losing golf or auto racing season. So the tournament starts on Thursday and Friday. We cash a darts play in the middle of the day because every Thursday there's a darts tournament over in England. We've been on an amazing hot streak in lacrosse. I've already made my units. I am feeling good. Someone texts me and asks who I'm betting on in the college basketball tournament. I say, I don't. I don't need to bet on college basketball. I've made my money in darts and lacrosse. Quote, what kind of degenerate bets on those sports? I'm like, I don't know, the kind that loves building up bankrolls. Fine. So we keep cashing. Saturday rolls around. Get another text from somebody else. Who you like today? Well, person in UFC, and I like this person in this sport. No, college basketball. I don't do college basketball. Well, how can you not do college basketball? What are you doing betting all those? What are you, a degenerate? Okay. So let's go to some tweets that I sent out, Steve. I sent out a funny, weird tweet on March 21st based on certain events. It was a joke. My interpreter likes Iowa State minus 7.5 today. I get 4.4 thousand engagements, which is good for me. Iowa State wins. As a joke, I put out another interpreter bet that Alabama minus 6 is the play. 50,000 engagements, Steve, on a joke tweet. Now, guess what people are asking me for? Not what's my next golf play, not what's my next lacrosse play, not what's my next darts play. What's my next interpreter play for college basketball? And I'm the degenerate. I don't get it, but I guess I just have to accept, Steve, that I am a degenerate for not betting college basketball. So if you'll need me, I will be over here in the corner cashing on all those other sports. And that is what this bettor learned.
That's fantastic, Andy. But I got my bracket here, and I just need to know who are you taking? Who's your interpreter taking for the Sweet 16? I want to get in on this hot action here.
He's pretty busy with some press conferences, so I'll get it from him tomorrow, and I will put it out on social media. So yeah, he's a busy guy these days, Steve.
It's funny though that you say like degenerates bet on those sports, because I could see where people say, yeah, you're up at 4 a.m. betting on Filipino basketball, you're a degenerate. But there's 2 types of people that do that. The degenerates who have no clue what they're doing and they're chasing after all their losses. But I know what you're doing, and I know you study this stuff and you win. So like I don't even consider that. So it is funny. But hey, look, every time you're on every week, I've always said diversify your portfolio. Andy Lang's the man because he's doing motorsports, he's doing darts, which I know you'd love to talk about, lacrosse. MMA, UFC, we're going to get to that a little bit later in the show for your big game breakdown. And I love it because I'm doing NBA, I'm doing college basketball, and I'll be doing MLB. I do the big mainstream sports, and there's nothing wrong with either one of them. And in fact, I love it because you can use your plays and my plays, and they're not going to have any crossover. You're doing mostly props with the NBA. I'm not. So it's, it's a great way to diversify and win more money on top of that. So it goes back to what we've always said, though, Andy. There's 2 types of sports bettors. The ones that just want to have fun and action, and there's nothing wrong with that. Just be honest with yourself if you're that type of bettor, or the ones that actually are treating this as an investment. And once again, it's a free world. You can do whatever you like. But yeah, it's amazing though, isn't it too? Because like if you were talking about this in November, nobody's betting college basketball. It's like, what's wrong with you not betting college football in November? And now 5 months later, it's like, what's wrong with you not betting college basketball in March? So, yeah, I mean, when's the last time you've played college basketball? Is it a sport you've messed with in the past and you got away from? Or
Never. Huh? I've never done it. The only college sports I do team totals in college football. I think we hit 70% of them, and we do 1 play a week. And for me and my betting style, it just works a lot better to follow some of these sports that are off of people's radars. The lines that you can get are so soft in some markets. And honestly, this time of year is great for me because the books are all worried about college basketball. We'll ask Dave Sharapan about that. They're not paying attention to some of these other sports. So you log on and you see, I'll give you an example. So Dan put out a lacrosse play on 2 teams yesterday. The spread was minus 17.5. So a team had to win by 18 goals to cover the spread. They only scored 16. They didn't even score enough goals to cover the spread. And it was one of the easiest cashes you could possibly get, but it's not college basketball. So myself and All Access clients enjoyed a huge cash in the afternoon. But again, it's not one of those major sports. So I hope people listen to what you're saying about diversifying your portfolio. There are a lot of sports and a lot of great opportunities to build bankrolls outside the big ones.
Yeah, and for people that are new to sports betting, I know many viewers here probably knew it's been legalized in numerous states the last couple of years. The time is never better to play these smaller markets because of all the legalized sports betting. DraftKings and FanDuel especially, they have a lot of handle and they don't mind taking action on these smaller sports. Back 20 years ago, we can ask Dave Sharapan a little bit about this as well. When he's running an offshore book, they would limit you. They wouldn't even allow you to bet these sports. And the limits are lower on these sports for a reason. That's another thing. If you want to see where you can have an edge, look at how much you can bet on a darts match or lacrosse match this weekend versus a Sweet 16 Elite 8 matchup. And that'll tell you right there which sport the odds makers probably feel the lines are a little bit softer. And spoiler alert, it's the ones that have the lower limits. Hey, let's talk some more NBA, though. Another guy that focuses heavy on the NBA, Ronald Cabang, of course, was just on, but Skee Prophet, Hakeem Prophet, is also an NBA expert. You can find him quite often on the NBA Tip-Off Show at 4:15 Eastern on weekdays here. He was on yesterday on Monday. And Skee, let's jump right into it. I know you actually do focus on the tournament, though, so I'll ask you real quick, how's March Madness going?
That's cool. My bad. Can you hear
What's
me?
that?
Yeah, good.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Go ahead, Skee. I heard what you say. Yeah, expand upon what we were talking about.
Yeah, well, to answer your question, March Madness hasn't been the greatest. It's been up and down. Round 2 was a lot better than round 1, and we'll look to clean up the rest of the tournament even better than that. But, I get called, or I've been called, a degenerate as well, just like Andy was talking about, but it's for a different reason. It's because I bet a lot of plays. And a lot of people, for some reason, believe if you bet a lot of plays, you can't win. And that's not true. You should focus on the quality of plays that you're placing. As long as you feel you have an edge, you can get to the window with it. And I feel like I've proven that the past 2 years. So not a degen. I make bets that I think are good bets, even though they're a lot.
Yeah, well, Skee, it's an excellent point, though, and that's why I always talk about units one. It's fun to say, hey, we're on a 60% run or a 70% run, but you make a lot more money hitting 56% on 400 plays over the course of the season than you will hitting 65% on 50 plays, So it's just a mathematical thing. If you have an edge, and that's what the casino does. The casino has like a 1% to 2% edge on craps and blackjack, and they just have hundreds of thousands of hands and rolls of the dice to grind that edge out. In fact, what they fear the most is when a high roller comes up there and puts $1 million down on the pass line for one roll and he's going to go to dinner right after that. They don't want that because that's a 50-50 crapshoot, basically, no pun intended. That's why they give the guys comps. They rate them for playing longer, more hours. That's what they want to see. And it's the same thing. You have an edge. If you have a 55, 56% edge, you're better off playing all the games that you can find that have those edges because you'll grind out more profits. So it's an excellent point. And I think people a lot of times get fixated on win percentage. We got baseball starting this week. Playing plus money underdogs, you can hit 40% on the season and make money, right? So like win percentage is a very overrated concept in sports betting. Skee, what's something you're looking at tonight in the NBA?
I have a couple games I'm looking at, but the first one I'll talk about, we can go to that Lakers and Bucks game. The injury report, first of all, we have to get there. LeBron has been ruled out, and I believe Patrick Beverley has been ruled out for the Bucks side as well. So when I see that makes me feel even stronger for points to be scored in this game. First of all, the Bucks do not have good perimeter defense. You have Malik Beasley and Lillard out there. They started to play better when they got Pat Bev, and then they started to take away those minutes, and they've gone back to I think they're like the second worst or third worst defensive rated team in the last 5 games. And without him out there tonight, I think the guards for LA will have a lot of success. Outside of that, the Lakers, their offense has been really good over the past, I want to say a little bit more than a month. And why? Because they've actually started to run plays, and that's just starting to become a more efficient offense because of it. You look more at this, no LeBron James. That doesn't scare me off of an over. That makes me like it more. All he does is slow the game down, take up the shot clock. The pace increases by like 1.5 possessions when he's off the court. I look at how the Lakers have been playing on the road in the first half specifically. 22-9 to the over, 71%. You look at their last 4 games, they've cleared this 119 mark in the first half, 3 of them. Lakers last 5 games are 9th in pace, but I talked about how that can increase without LeBron. And you look at both of these offenses lately, they've been elite. Both top 5 the last 5 games, while also being bottom 10 defensive rated teams. Neither team defending the 3 well. They're both bottom 10 the last 5 games, and they're both shooting it solid. So I see this being an up and down game, a track meet kind of game, and I prefer to bet the first half over, because if it is a blowout, I can see some energy being saved, especially, for the Lakers on the front end of a back-to-back. So my play for this game will be to cut it in half and go first half over 118.5.
Skee, do you do anything with live lines? Sometimes we don't talk about live lines a lot, and I know it's becoming increasingly popular. I know this because I went out with some guys to watch the NCAA tournament games, and that was pretty much all they were doing. So do you experiment with live lines when you have a first half over-under bet going?
Experiment, I wouldn't say that, but people may not know. When I got into this industry, the first thing I did was a live betting show. So I'm pretty good at live betting. You have to watch the games to be able to live bet, in my opinion. I watch them, I see when the momentum is changing, or like let's say, for example, they start off shooting poor in the first quarter. I don't think the defense is going to hold up. I would probably jump in live at a better number. So yes, I do watch the games and I do bet them live. And this could be one of those. We'll get a live number on the over.
Yeah, I think the key to live betting, once again, for anybody that's new to sports betting in general, is you have to take adjusted line value. I hardly ever see situations in which I lay a worse number in game. If a team was a 4-point favorite pre-flop, we call it, before the game started, you're looking for a reason to take, when it's 12, you're looking for a reason to take that dog at plus 12 probably, unless something really unusual happens. And the other thing about basketball is, Skee, the timeouts, momentum breakers, and that's the reason they call timeouts, and you see these teams, both the tournament and the NBA, go on these 7-8 point runs. Coaches call a timeout, and you do see the momentum start to shift, but I don't feel like the live market often takes that into account. It's a lot of like algorithms. Dave Sharapan, who'll be on next, we've talked about that before, and I think kind of beating the bots, beating the algorithms at their own game by using some human intuition is the way to do well nowadays with in-game betting. All right, Skee, that's the early game at 7:30 Eastern. Lakers at Bucks. Your Los Angeles Lakers at the Milwaukee Bucks. And now we're going to look at the 10 o'clock game, also national TV, TNT, Mavericks and Kings. Ronald was leaning towards Dallas as a dog. Ronald Cabang was on earlier. But you're going to take a look at the total in this game. What are you doing with it?
Yes, I want to take a look at the total. This is an important game for both of these teams. Both tied as far as in the standings. And when you have games like this, it's going to be more like a playoff type environment when you have guys jockeying for playoff position down the stretch. You can look all the way back, especially when teams are in conference after All-Star break. I have a trend that's hitting about 80%. So, if you're an all-access person, you already know what I'm talking about. Other things to like in this game, you have 2 teams who've been playing really good defense lately, and that's surprising. The Mavs, for a good chunk of the season, were one of the bottom 5 defensive rated teams, but they realized in order to start winning games and playing better, it has to start on that end. Same can be said for the Kings. They've been very poor defensively all year, and like I said, they're both top 5 right now. You have the Mavs, the absolute worst shooting the 3 lately. I think they're 25% their last 5 games, and both teams top 10 defending the 3. Mavs have been playing nothing but under games, 6 of their last 7. Kings under 8 of their last 9. Both teams played last night. I don't know how much gas they got in the tank for the offense. I think, they know this game is important. They're going to bring it defensively. Mavs games have not been reaching this 233.5 number. I think it's like the last 4, something like that. And I don't think they'll reach it again here tonight. So I believe the under is the play.
Great breakdown, and I don't even have a follow-up. I told Ronald earlier that the spread didn't make any sense to me. The total kind of doesn't make any sense to me. So for me, I'm either way wrong or way right about it, and I'm with you 100% on the under. Number doesn't make sense. Hopefully the tired legs affects the offense more than the defense. So love the breakdown, Skee.
Appreciate that.
Skee, what's your take on Dallas real quick on the way out? We talked about it. They're 8-1 straight up ATS here last night. Ronald actually mentioned a couple better defensive players picked up before the break, and you like the under here. So, I mean, are you a believer in Dallas? Is this a team that had just underachieved, or are they going to make a run in the postseason?
I'm more of a believer in Dallas than Sacramento Kings. I think both defenses will have a hard time being as consistent, more so the Kings. And I just, at the end of the day, I trust Luka and Kyrie more than anybody on the other side. You look at how the Kings have been playing so far this year on a back-to-back. They've only covered 4 out of 12 games. Meanwhile, the Mavericks they've been dominant. 8 out of 11 they've covered. They've been playing better basketball lately than the Kings, in my opinion. So I would be rolling with the Mavericks. I'm not really agreeing with them being an underdog in this game.
Yeah, one thing I didn't point out earlier with Ronald, it jumps out to me is I don't really look at this too often, but both teams are 42 and 29 straight up, as I'd said earlier. But against the money line, Dallas is +2 units on the season. Kings are -14 units on the money line. It's not something I really ever talk about or look at, but what that tells me, guys, is that they're very inconsistent, right? They're losing games, occasionally as a favorite that they shouldn't be losing. And if you look at that recent loss against Washington, 11-point road favorite in that game. A loss to the Knicks is a 4-point home favorite. Those are actually their 2 last losses. They've gone 6-0 straight up the other 8 during the 8 games, but the 2 losses have been as a 4 and 11-point favorite. So I'm kind of with you. I just don't think they're quite at that level yet to make a run in the postseason. Sacramento, that is. We'll see what happens. Skee, NBA expert. You dabble with the NCAA tournament, as you said. What else you got going on at WagerTalk.com this week?
Well, first, I would say if you would like to buy a play today, go ahead and buy RC's $2 Tuesday. I believe he's been hitting like 70+% the last 2 years. And then after you cash that ticket, you maybe want to get in with him for the rest of the year. You can come take a look at myself. It's the time of year where I start to, do really good in the association. Things go really clear for me. Since March 22nd of last year, I am up, or $100 better is up $22,960 in the association. My last 181 wagers in the NBA, I've hit 59.6%. And I'm looking to keep it rolling into the playoffs. So all of my work is available at WagerTalk.com.
It's Skee Profit. Check him out at WagerTalk.com, NBA expert. And once again, you can find him quite often on the NBA Tip-Off Show weekdays at 4:15 Eastern here. We're also doing some morning editions this week, so check those out here on Wager Talk TV. I did one yesterday, gave out 3 free plays in that clip. I'm going to do a couple more here this afternoon. So hit subscribe and hit the bell as well, so when those daily free play videos come up here on the channel. And if you're finding it useful and you'd like to keep it free, give us a thumbs up, a like here on the show and every show. That goes a long way. And comment below. I read all the comments, and we all read them. We reply back. Let us know who you're looking at tonight in the NBA on Tuesday. 4 games on the board, but some good ones. We've talked about most of them already here on the show. I'm going to have Dave Sharapan in a few minutes around the corner. But in the meantime, Andy, we talk about some of those other sports you do. UFC, MMA, mixed martial arts. Give us a little big game breakdown on something in the UFC.
Yeah, not a lot of NBA games. Skee and RC did a really good job of breaking those down. If you want some NHL takes, I was on with Carmine and Andrew, so you can go check out Puck Time. Let's take a look at UFC. And Steve, I had to pick a violent fight. Let's talk some violence here for the UFC. There is a fighter who is fighting this weekend. His name is Anton Turkalay. And he's got a bad nickname. I always like fading these guys with bad nicknames. His nickname is the Pleasure Man. So immediately, I'm out. I watched this guy on Contender Series last year. It's no joke. His nickname's the Pleasure Man. So the Pleasure Man won on Contender Series. It was not a very good performance, but they needed a guy in his weight division on short notice. So he signed a 4-fight contract with the UFC. He's fought 3 fights, and he's lost all of them. His first fight, he got choked out in the first round. His second fight, he got beat up for all 3 rounds. And then in his third fight, he got knocked out in the first round to a guy named Tyson Pedro. Tyson Pedro retired in his very next fight. Anton Turkalay got knocked out by a guy who had 1 foot out the door and is moving on to the next phase of his career. Turkalay has absolutely no striking defense. He is a punching bag. He holds his hands way too low, and he's done it his entire career and is getting pieced up in the UFC. He is fighting a guy named Aslan, who's only -125. Aslan is a knockout artist. He came off a Contender Series with a first-round knockout in the fall. Before that, round 1 knockout. Fight before that, round 1 knockout. Before that, round 1 knockout. You can see where I'm going with this. We have a fighter with bad striking defense going up against a guy who knocks people out. Aslan, for his career, is 12-1. Steve, the one loss was in 2020 to a fighter by the name of Anton Turkalay. That's right. This is a revenge spot to avenge his one loss in his career. I went back and watched that fight. Aslan was just beating the crap out of Turkalay. Turkalay turns it around and randomly gets a submission. He was losing 99% of the fight. This is going to be the last fight on Turkalay's contract. This is a great spot for Aslan to debut in the UFC. Wait until the props start coming out tomorrow and take Aslan by knockout to really test that weak chin and the bad striking defense. This fight will not go the distance. It will be Aslan winning by knockout, and that is your big game breakdown.
Love it, Andy. And I was going to say, why is it only plus 105? It's a mismatch. But like you just said, he beat him in the previous meeting. And I love to do that in college basketball, is to dig into those box scores from the first meeting when they have revenge situations. And what I'm looking for is what you just talked about. It's a misleading result where the better team, for some random reason, did not win. I love situations like that in sports. And I really love that big game breakdown. And yeah, you're going to win by knockout because you're not going to the ground with a guy named the Pleasure Man. At least I wouldn't if I was in USC. So that in itself is a reason to play that type of prop. Hey, speaking of pleasure, it's my pleasure bringing Dave Sharapan, sportsbook consig. Oh man, look at him. He's perplexed.
What?
Perplexed.
Listen, first of all, great to see both of you and not have to see Prez on a Flex Tuesday. Okay,
Yeah.
No drama. Second of all, don't tell Prez about this Pleasure Man because he will adopt the nickname for himself, Andy. I don't want him saying one time that he's the Pleasure Man or anything like that. So when he watches the show back, which I know he will do, because he always checks us out on Tuesdays, that's even when he's not here, his presence is here.
He's omnipresent on Wager Talk TV, especially Wager Talk Today. And yeah, this show would have gone about 2 hours long after Andy said Pleasure Man. We wouldn't even be with you yet, Dave. You'd still be waiting in the wings. So you should be very grateful that it did not happen today. And I was going to say, you look perplexed. I thought maybe you thought you were on the wrong show since it was me and Andy and not Teddy and Prez, but you're safe.
No. I heard Pleasure Man, and I my mind started racing. As I just was like, wait a second, is this for real? And then Andy sold it like it's for real. There's no question about it. And I thought, thank goodness Prez isn't on right now, because forget about it. Might be Prez the Pleasure Man. You know, that this might be his new nickname. I'm worried about it.
And by the way, Dave, I always love your hats, but that Dodger hat is sharp. I haven't seen that version before. That's pretty damn cool. And want to ask him baseball, but Andy's more of a baseball guy than a college basketball guy, as we established. So I'm going to start off with a little recap of the round of 32, really the first two rounds. Maybe throw wherever you like, maybe an advanced look Sweet 16. Then I'm going to let Andy kind of maybe hit some baseball with you. What are you looking at? What have you seen? I mean, first of all, I got to ask you, Dave, favorites crushed on Saturday, did pretty well on Sunday.
Ooh.
Although Oregon looked like they were taking some public money and sharp money. So I guess the only thing worse for the books would have been had it gone 7-1 with Oregon covering. Creighton probably helped them, but they had to be a pretty big day for the bettors on Saturday, especially.
No question. It was a bettors weekend, the whole weekend. It was one of those ones where, you know, listen, there's no sympathy for the books. There never is. They open the next day. Everything's fine. I was hopping around town, did a couple live shows down at Resorts World. It was so much fun to be out and about with people from all over the place. I mean, there's nothing like the first 4 days of the tournament. And this year was a lot different than last year because a lot of the favorites, I mean, the money lines all won. You just parlayed any money line combination on Saturday with the favorites, and it won. And then usually you see the turnaround Sunday. We didn't get it. So what do we get now is we get, Steve, I think we get great basketball games. When you look at the numbers for Thursday and Friday, and the games Thursday are in L.A., hence why I got a little bit of the Dodger stuff on, as well as like baseball and everything that's going on with Shohei and all that other stuff. I think the games Thursday are awesome. I mean, there's 2.5 with Iowa State and Illinois. UConn is a machine. You can't do anything with UConn. I don't know. But 4, North Carolina. And I don't know, Steve, have you heard anybody say Clemson yet? Like that Clemson has a shot at all against Arizona?
No, what's interesting, Dave, about that? I was talking to some people yesterday. I said the best play in all of sports every year is to just blindly play the teams that nobody thought should get into the NCAA tournament. And who were two of them this year? And these are teams that are like single-digit seeds, not even like debatable. They were in easy, right? Michigan State, and they should have beaten UNC at one point. I had a best bet. I lost on that. It could very well be 2-0. And Clemson was that other team. Everybody loved New Mexico. They were favored. Everyone had them as the 11 seed or whatever going to the Sweet 16. So, yeah, Dave, I don't think Clemson's getting any love. Baylor was one of the more public favorites Sunday. Those teams are dangerous, although they do sometimes fizzle out the second round or the second week. So, yeah, what's your take on Clemson, though? I do think they're a little underrated.
I think they are live to cover, and I think for people like that are in survivors and different things like that, if you want to take your shot, I mean, you can take Clemson because why can't they win the game? I don't think it's as big of a mismatch as people are saying. Like, I was surprised the number was more than 6. So I'm just waiting for somebody to say that, in all the stuff that I do all week, that they have a shot, because I haven't heard it yet. Now, the team you're talking about fizzling out might be NC State. That one, I mean, they win 5 games in a row to win the ACC tournament. Then they win the 2 games with an overtime against Oakland. That was a fun basketball game, but that one may be the one that catches up. That number, as far as a favorite, kind of leading Marquette in that spot. I was so impressed. I think Marquette is such a different team with Kolek in there. They were moving the ball. They look like they can play any type of game. I was super impressed with Marquette.
Yeah, I mean, to win 6 games in a row, you have to have a little bit of luck, but you also have to have the bracket kind of work for you, right? You don't have to beat the best teams. You just have to have them eliminated sometimes before you play them. And that worked out for NC State with Oakland, and it's working out pretty well for Marquette. A lot of people thought they were kind of a phony 2 seed, so we'll see what happens this week. Before we get to some baseball with Andy Lang, though, I'm going to bring in a special guest. He's straight back from the principal's office, and you would think that would be the Prez, but it's not. It's Teddy Covers, and we don't have a 4-box. Well, there he is. It looks like he wasn't paddling too hard. He's sitting down, so he must not have been paddled too hard in the principal's office. But, Teddy, I'll throw it to you. Dave Sharapan is here. We've talked some college hoops. If you want to lead into baseball or if you want to follow up with college, your turn.
This morning, and I'm like, all right, can I get back in time to make an appearance? And I can. So I appreciate you guys having me on. Dave, I did want to follow up with you real quick about this past weekend in college basketball, because obviously the favorites cover all weekend. I think it was 15-1 straight up, 11-5 ATS for the chalk. When that happens on round of 32 weekend, do the books, do they really get pummeled? Do they legitimately get pummeled, or not so much? Is there enough underdog money that when the chalk comes through like it did over the weekend, yeah, the books get hit, but it's not a beatdown? Or do the books just get crushed this weekend?
Sometimes you get crushed, but I mean, for the books that are managing the risk correctly, you just move the number and go get the dog bet and kind of, live with the results. But the square books, 100%, they don't even have, they don't utilize the sharp money that will take the dogs at prices when nobody will, by the time it gets to late Saturday night with a situation like Creighton and Oregon, I mean, you saw somebody finally take the dog. Like, the line actually moved that way. So I think it's not as bad as some people say. And for books that are actually booking the games the right way, Teddy, it's just another day, except the handle's a lot bigger. So the swings are a lot bigger. But have no dismay. There's always NBA. There's always NHL. And we got baseball coming up. Everything's going to be just fine. A 500-1 shot won the golf. So nobody had that guy. Not one person probably had that guy, maybe in the entire United States, to win the golf. So you sweep all the golf. It all balances. The Vegas always works.
Vegas always wins some way, one way or another. Dave Sharapan at SportsBK and Sig. And Dave, I had the opportunity to do some live TV and radio with you last week during the opening round of the NCAA tournament over at Resorts World. That was a lot of fun. Talk about that show a little bit. It's the first time that I remember being on it. Tell me about it. And how did the predictions work out that you made over the weekend?
So the Bostonian versus the book, we're doing Matt and I every day, Monday through Friday, on the YouTube channel at Boston versus the book. It airs nationally on Sports Grid and Sirius XM later at night, 10 o'clock Pacific, 1 o'clock Eastern. But you were very generous with your time. You showed up in the salmon. We talked about the games. You basically told everybody a great point. If you have to go with a game and then go to the other side and then go back, maybe don't bet it. And you saved Matt on the side on the Creighton Oregon game because he was going back and forth and back. He didn't bet the game. He bet it in game. And it worked out okay because he had Creighton at a big plus. And then as Oregon was losing, I think he took 10.5 and he didn't cover the Oregon side. But it was a very good lesson for a lot of people. Like, you don't have to bet every game. And people, you were down there. You saw what the strip was like Thursday and Friday. I saw it. There was Kansas people that were bummed out. There were Wisconsin people that were bummed out. When they come and they lose the first game or lose the second game, it's a long weekend. I mean, I passed the guy that was standing outside of his car on Las Vegas Boulevard. He was wearing a Wisconsin hoodie. He was just puking his brains out. So, I mean, it was just another lesson that Vegas is crazy for March Madness week.
I have a question about baseball and the future. Yeah, the futures market. I feel like I've been late to the party on this one. I've only been doing futures in all sports for a few years. To see that the hit rate is very high for me across all sports. Baseball futures have been really good. Is this something that the books leave themselves exposed on, or do people not want to tie up money for that long? I know Teddy has done fantastic in the NFL in futures. I feel like it's one of those hidden gems where, yeah, I know you don't want to tie up your money forever, but at the end of the season, you come out ahead. It's money in the bank. What is the handle on the books? And you're wearing the Dodgers gear, so I got to ask about what's the money like on the Dodgers. I know they had to have been a popular team over, and now you got the story with Ohtani and everything. So what's going on in that market?
You look like you're wearing Dodger blue too, Andy. This kind of looks like we're matching. I kind of like that. That works. The Dodger total obviously has been the talk of all the preseason, the futures. You know, the books went and found the top early, put it at 104.5 and got, you know, bad guy bets under. And I don't think that's against everybody. So it's a popular choice to bet the Dodgers over. It's a popular choice every year to bet the Dodgers over. But the buzz around town, you know, you see a lot of people from the Midwest. They come and they bet the Cubs over no matter what you make the number. That's one that's getting a lot of legs. Matt's on it, even on the show, on Bostonian versus the book. The Central divisions are really interesting. We talked about it a couple weeks ago here with Teddy. It gets a lot of play because I think there's a lot of people that are into baseball, but they're not into it for 6 months. They're into it at the beginning, and they make a play and put it away. And then it sits, and you find it later. Like you said, you get down to September, and you go, hey, I actually have the Tigers season wins over. This is good. I have the Tigers to maybe win the AL Central. This isn't bad. It's just hard because the NL West, if the Dodgers don't win it, it'll be shocked. If the Phillies or the Braves, most likely the Braves, don't win the NL East, it's a shock. So you don't get as much action on the baseball futures like you do the football futures. Plus, football's just king. It just gets all the bets.
So, Teddy, follow-up? Rebuttal? Oh, I thought we had Teddy.
Oh,
there he is.
Oh, there he is.
Oh, yeah.
Muted Teddy.
Teddy's muted.
I muted myself. So sorry. The Ohtani story right now is nothing but headlines.
Ooh.
All right.
It's bad.
Does it have legs? What do we do with this story? Does it have implications for the Dodgers moving forward? Does it have implications for Ohtani moving forward? Or are they going to be able to sweep this under the rug the way they want to?
Well, I think they're going to be in control of it now that he had that statement yesterday. I mean, he came out firing. He was looking fastball right down the middle and fired. You know, said what he had to say, and basically made Ipe, his former translator. I mean, if he's not the fall guy, he is now. That was pretty evident. There's no question that, you know, he specifically used words like, I did not bet on baseball. I did not, you know, do this. I did not do that. So not taking questions is a choice. And I can't say that I don't blame them for not doing it. But there's a lot of people asking a lot of questions, Theodore. A lot of people asking a lot of questions because, the tie, the bookie and people betting and all this other stuff. I think there's legs to the story. There's just a lot of, this isn't just a 4-leg table. I think this has multiple tentacles from it. There's a lot of, this is a big federal investigation, and we're going to find out a lot more now going forward. I hope it doesn't impact the stuff on the field. I really, like, somebody asked me, what would you do if you were still in a book moving a number? I would kind of just sit tight and wait. I think there's people, though, that will come to bet it and bet against the Dodgers, because if he doesn't play, that's a big hole out of their lineup.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, Teddy, I know Teddy and I have both talked about how we like the season wins over, and this is a little bit of an X factor now, but I think they've done a good job getting in front of it, and I also just don't think they're looking to make an example of anybody with sports betting being legalized everywhere now. It's more accepted, and Ohtani is definitely not a guy that they're going to take this. They're not going to let him fall on the sword. It'll be somebody else. Good news,
right.
Andy's interpreter is doing great in March Madness, and you can get his picks for free at Bump Sports on Twitter, Andy Lang. Dave, where else can we find you? Wish we had more time for baseball, but I know you do a lot with baseball. You do an MLB network this season?
So, yeah, MLB Network, we're going to find out exactly what the plan is. They got this big curveball. This is all, like, they're totally dedicated to this Ohtani story, and they got a lot of other things that they want to worry about rather than kind of drifting away from spring training previews and opening day previews. The story's dominated everything. But Sports BK Consig, right there, you can see it on the Twitter. Every day, again, with the Bostonian versus the book. Every day with the cash considerations. Me and Dan Alexander are doing a quick cash considerations in 20 minutes or less. And then every night on Sports Grid and Sirius XM Radio, 5 o'clock Pacific, 8 o'clock Eastern. It's called In Game Live. We watch the games, we watch the lines move, and, talk about current events.
It's good stuff. He is easy to find. Just go to Sports BK Consig on Twitter, and he'll let you know where you could find him live. It's a mouthful, Dave Sharapan. The pleasure man, Dave Sharapan. That was Teddy Covers. That was Andy Lang. I am Steve Merrill. And you can find all of us, the rest of us, at WagerTalk.com. Andy, Teddy, myself, Steve Merrill, our best bets for Tuesday night and the rest of this week at WagerTalk.com. And I couldn't decide if Andy should close or Teddy should close. You should take us home. So neither one of them are going to take them home. They're jumping in the back seat. I'm taking us home. It's been a great show. We'll do this again tomorrow on Wednesday at noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Best of luck. Comment below, like, subscribe, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow Wednesday. Enjoy the games tonight.